people are coming in and arriving. We'll get started in just a minute as people emerge into this webinar. Thank you for being here. We'll get started in just a minute, letting more people arrive. All right, we'll get started now. My name is Michelle. I'm the Executive Director at Joe Good Performance Group. I am here to introduce BUSCARTE, Searching for You, with NAKA Dance Theater, José Navarrete and Debby Kajiyama. This event is part of GUSH, which is a new festival platform at Joe Good Annex. GUSH was envisioned to be a festival for conversation and a platform to highlight artists in our Annex community whose work is something unique, has something to say, and that we really believe in. And of course, this year now it's online, but we do plan for GUSH to be a regular happening at the Joe Good Annex and with Joe Good Performance Group. So thank you for joining us here in Zoom for our very first GUSH Festival. All of the festival events are being offered by donation. If you haven't done so yet, please consider making a donation to support this festival and the Annex. I will post a link to that in the chat. GUSH will continue with events all through Sunday, the 31st. NAKA will be hosting another event on Friday at 7 p.m. And that will be a conversation with Omar Garcia. And they will also be part of a happy hour that we're hosting on Saturday at 6 with Joe Good and Gerald Cassell, who are our other main stage festival artists. I'll post the website as well into the chat that lists all of the events for GUSH. So on to tonight. I will be hosting BUSCARTE tonight, which really just means that I will be handling the technology for this event. So if you have any questions or need any support, you can use the chat feature to get in touch with me. And I'll wrap up in just a minute and hand it over to NAKA for their performance. And then afterwards, I'll come back on and help to moderate a conversation, and we will welcome your comments and questions. And I'll provide some more information about how that all will work in a little while. So without further ado, let's get started.
Great, yeah.
old creeping door, the kind you would see in a dictator's palace, but faded and peeling and stone heavy. Lean the weight of your body into her, and everything gives way. A stifling tunnel, forked tongues, forked passages. Am I inside a lung? Trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, falling fast forward to the past. Didn't I pass an old creeping door? The kind you would see in a dictator's palace. No time to think, but falling as you run, running as you fall, and stone. Choose your path by intuition. Lean the weight of your body into her, and everything gives way. Left, right, a stifling tunnel, forked tongues, forked passages. Am I inside a lung? Trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, falling fast forward to the past. But didn't I pass an old creeping door? The kind you would see in a dictator's palace. No time to think, but falling as you run, running as you fall, and stone. Choose your path by intuition. Lean the weight of your body into her, and everything gives way. Left, right, a stifling tunnel, forked tongues, forked passages. Am I inside a lung? Trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, falling fast downward to the past. But didn't I pass an old creeping door? The kind deep. Inside forked tongues, forked passages, lungs, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli. Lean the weight of your body into her, and everything gives way.
No. 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 I don't think it's a haunting. It's always going to be something that happened. The reason I have a clean conscience is because I know I did my job right. I saw a body. No. Well, at one time, yes. He didn't have a face. Are you sorry?
No.
Is there anything you could have done differently?
No.
Nothing?
No.
It's hard to lead a normal life when someone is lying there dead. Is it something you think will always haunt you?
I don't think it's a haunting. It's always going to be something that happened.
You have a very clean conscience.
The reason I have a clean conscience is because I know I did my job right.
Tell me what you saw.
I saw a body.
And was it alive?
No. At one time, yes.
Could you see the face?
He didn't have a face.
What do you mean he didn't have a face? Are you sorry?
No.
Is there anything you could have done differently?
No.
Nothing?
No.
It's hard to live a normal life when someone is lying there dead. Will it always haunt you?
I don't think it's a haunting. It's always going to be something that happened.
You have a very clean conscience.
The reason I have a clean conscience is because I know I did my job right.
Tell me what you saw.
I saw a body.
And was it alive?
No, wait, at one time, yes.
Could you see the face?
He didn't have a face.
What do you mean he didn't have a face?
Are you sorry?
No.
Is there anything you could have done differently?
No.
Nothing?
No.
It's hard to lead a normal life when someone is lying dead. Is it something you think will always haunt you?
I don't think it's a haunting. It's always going to be something that happened.
You have a very clean conscience.
The reason that I have a clean conscience is because I know I did my job right.
Tell me what you saw.
I saw a body.
And was he alive?
No. Well, at one time,
Could
yes.
you see the face?
He didn't have a face.
No face?
I mean, they removed the face. They removed the eyes.
Don't say that. Have some respect for the dead. No face? Could you see the face? Is there anything you could have done differently? Nothing. Are you sorry? Nothing. It's hard to lead a normal life. Tell me what you saw. Was he alive? Is it something you think will always haunt you? Could you see the face? Was he alive? Is there anything that you could have done differently? Nothing. Could you see his face? Are you sorry? Did you look into his eyes?
So they came down here and they unloaded 28 people, all of them alive. They interrogated them and then they shot one after another. So you have 28 bodies bleeding, and the bodies of those they killed first obviously bled longer. We should be seeing the blood of 28 people here. There should be a pool of blood like no other. But there's nothing. Nothing here. If we do the math and we estimate a minimum of a liter of blood per person, we would have 28 liters of blood here. If we calculate it with twice the blood, that's 56 liters of blood. But there is absolutely no indication of any blood here. Terco ordered that they free up some space at the bottom of the dump to pile up some wood in order to place the students' bodies on top with all of their belongings and their cell phones, and then set them on fire with diesel and gasoline. But look at the terraces. They look as if they were constructed for agricultural use. There's no smooth hillside that would allow anything to roll all the way down to the bottom. So you transport a large number of bodies, and then hundreds and hundreds of logs, 33 tons of wood. And then you have to drag in some tires, nearly 1,000 tires, and transport everything from way up there all the way down here. But they don't roll, not easily at least. It's a story virtually impossible to believe. They say the fire reached an unlikely temperature of 1,600 degrees Celsius. But the smoke from such a huge fire would have been visible for miles around. But no one saw any evidence of such a massive fire. And you have to do all this at night when it's really dark. I believe it was a new moon, and the sky was cloudy because it was raining.
This is your democracy now. This is your democracy now. Are you satisfied? I hope so, because a lot of people have worked long, dog-tired hours to set the record straight. Straighter than you ever seen the record, in fact. Everything is straight, razor sharp. So, I have packaged the story so that it is nice and easy to understand. Short and sweet.
Like a tweet.
So, you load the bodies into the back of the pickup truck. Around 38 of them. 15 have already died. No from gunshots. Suffocation. The ones at the bottom crushed to death. The ones in the middle were suffering so much that they wanted to die. And the ones on top, they killed their friends. Okay, then you get to the dump. You force them to confess their crimes, and then you shoot them. The chief orders to pile some wood at the bottom of the dump, put the bodies on top with their belongings and cell phones, and then set them on fire with diesel and gasoline.
You take turns watching the fire all night and have to keep adding more woods and tires and fuel to keep it going until everything is reduced to ashes.
Ashes into plastic bags, bags down the river. You close the case. Finito. Done. But remember, I soar high in the sky where I have the best view of everything that happens. Up so high, the air is chilly and the atmosphere is thin and it's so cold. You feel like your skin shrinks and everything gets small. I am the decision, the command, the power, the chief, the head bird. From up here, I can see everything. I can see everything with my eagle eyes. I see you.
Normally, I like to eat prairie dogs and squirrels, but tonight, I am very hungry. Don't get cracked, don't get hinged, don't get crooked. I can swoop down and get very close to you, and I know you love it.
You love me.
I love you. I love jewels, I love shiny coins, and I love entertainment. And I can land on your head, and I can grab your cheeks with my talons and put my butt in your face and flap around because I know you love me.
Then I put my beak in your chest and I make a hole. And I open your chest and I use my claws to pull out your heart. Yes, your bloody heart.
And then I eat it.
And the fire. The fire is enormous, alive, and it eats, and it eats, and it eats, surge along the ground, and a log cracks and falls, and the whole pyre shifts, and the sparks fly into the air.
Hot, hot, hot. 30 feet away, your hair will go up in flames. 20 feet, your clothes starts to burn. 10 feet, you start melting.
Melting. Melting. Your mama sends you a text message, but it does not arrive. That is your democracy now.
buscarte sobre el campo enamorado, buscarte en el silencio del cielo indiferente. Buscarte cuando tu sonrisa me encuentra en el espejo borrado de los días. Buscarte mientras crecen las ácidas mentiras en árboles cargados de rapiña. Buscarte, buscarte, buscarte. Buscarte entre los pliegues de sábanas intactas, de almohadas destempladas con tu ausencia. Buscarte en los infiernos de Dante, en el amor de Paula y en los mates amargos. Buscarte en el pasado que llega mañana. En la noche infinita, bajo la cruz del sur. Y hallarte entre los hijos que te encuentran tan lejos y tan cerca eternamente. Buscarte, buscarte, buscarte.
Thank you. José, NAKA Dance Theater, all of your collaborators. Wow, really something. We now have a few minutes to take questions and comments. I will help moderate. The way that this can work, you can ask a question via the little question and answer button. If you press on the bottom of your screen, you can type a question in. Or if you want to, you can raise your hand, pressing the little raise hand button like school, and I will do a little fancy dance where I make your video and audio visible so that we can see you, and you can ask a question in person, or the close proximity to that. And then for those of you who are watching on Facebook Live, you can type in a comment on that feed, and I will ask Debbie and Jose as well. So while you all formulate your brilliant questions, I will pull up a few of my own to get us started. So I thought I'd ask a little bit about background. I have not had the privilege of seeing BUSCARTE live, and I wonder, for those of us who haven't seen it in person, if you could share a bit of the backstory of how the work came to be, and how you were drawn to the story and what it means to you.
Well, we started working, I think, like 3 years ago. We started doing some workshops at the Fresh Festival, and we were, at that time, we were really interested to research this phenomena of mass graves. It was something like that people were talking about it, but it was something that it became like an interest, but it's something that's like something is horrible happening, and just we need to deal with that. So that's the reason that I felt that that was something that it kind of inspired us to do our research about mass graves. And doing that, we were finding information, and then we were following the movement of the 43.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were looking, when we were studying about the 43, it was very extremely devastating to really know what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Because besides the police brutality and the disappearance that happened in that event, there were a lot of roles, or a lot of people in power that they were covering up the case, and that make us really, feel really bad, like justice is not happening.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the kind of the main points of this work, it was when they, the families came to the government to ask for their children. They said, like, oh, they are dead. Like, they are dead. They were killed, and you can look for them in this mass grave. And they went to look for them. But then when they found the remains and they did the research, the DNA research, the forensic research, they were not their children, but there were a lot of remains. So it became like an Pandora's box in terms of the magnitude and the scale of atrocity and horror that a lot of people were experiencing. So that was kind of the main point. People are asking, like, how long is this project? I think it's about 45 minutes, maybe 45 to 55, something like that. We have presented this work. First, we presented the Yogut Annex full evening. I think it was 2 years ago. And then we have been traveling this work. We went to Japan. We got a residency in Japan, and we managed to present the whole show in Japanese. So thanks to Debby's abilities to speak Japanese, that helped us to do that. So it was really great to have that experience.
I just wanted to add a little bit. I'm not sure how many people watching the show know the story of the 43 students from Ayotzinapa, so maybe I'll just back up and give a really quick summary of what happened. So there's this tradition of teachers' colleges, especially in rural Mexico, where primarily young youth from farming families decide that they want to become teachers and study how to become a teacher and then go back to their communities in order to serve the communities by working in the schools there. And Ayotzinapa is the name of one of the schools. And every year, the students go to Mexico City for a commemoration of a protest on October 2nd to actually remember the massacre that happened in Tlatelolco in Mexico City in 1968. So it's kind of an annual event that they go to in commemoration of that. And usually, because they don't have a lot of resources and they don't have their own transportation, they sort of borrow buses from the municipality and take them and go, and then they bring the buses back. It happens every year. And this time there was a huge crackdown and murder with what seemed like a very coordinated effort among federal, state, and municipal officials, where they murdered and disappeared 43 of those students. So that's why it's called the Ayotzinapa 43. But the interesting thing about it is that there are lots of forced disappearances that happen in the world, but there became a huge uprising, a huge protest movement that spread even outside of Mexico. So that was also really inspiring to us, that it continues to grow, and their demand for justice.
Thank you for sharing.
I think the text that we use is based on independent research that happened in the case. It was independent research run by, it's called ¿cómo se dice, Debbie?
Independiente Interdisciplinarios. It's GIEI. It's called. But it's an independent forensic investigators that have come from other countries to Mexico to basically try to figure out what happened. And they issued a big report, and they said, we think that you should interview the federal police, and Mexico said, no, you're done. Bye. And now many things have changed because of the change in administration and the president now. But
so one of the things that happened,
So that when you were talking about the Jose, when you started talking about the text in the piece, Joe Good had a question about whether some of that dialogue was taken from interviews through that process, or where did the text come from in the piece?
Yeah, I can talk about it. Let's see. The interrogation actually came from an interview that had nothing to do, in some ways had nothing to do with the Ayotzinapa case. It was an interview of Darren Wilson, the white police officer who killed Michael Brown. And he was interviewed, and I took some of that text and also combined it with some information from the interdisciplinary report. That was the interrogation part, the tape recorder part. Maybe that's what he was referring to. And then the story that talked about sort of the forensic evidence or lack of forensic evidence was also taken from Professor Tamaris Greco, who has done a lot of research into the place where the government claims that they killed the students and disposed of their bodies, when in reality it's not likely that actually happened.
Came in from Eric Cooper's, that sort of relates a bit to this, which is how did you decide which parts of the story to tell literally like that forensic piece, and which parts to leave out or address in more metaphoric or poetic ways. And he asks, can you talk about the bird specifically and what that came to symbolize for you?
I think one of the texts that it was very clear for us to keep it in the piece was the kind of the comparison of the two stories. One, that the official story that was promoting, saying that they were killed, they are dead, and let's close it. And that's what it is. That is the official story, that they wanted to close the case so that people get, like money or they get support, but everything is closed. And then the story, based on the forensic anthropology research, it was refuting that story in terms of the facts. I said, okay, it was this big fire, we burned all the bodies, but the specifics of it, the specifics of bringing, like going to the place, which it was like a cliff, that they tossed the bodies, and bringing wood, and bringing tires, and bringing fuel. It seems very complicated, and you need a lot of people to do that. And if you want to incinerate, you wanted to burn all the bodies, you need a lot of fuels to do that. And it needs to be big. It needs to be like people like from around the town, they need to see that it was a big fire. So those things didn't match. That kind of comparison didn't match from the official story. So I thought that for us, it was very important to just like continue revealing this idea, like, yes, you're telling that they are dead, but how you are telling that they are dead, it doesn't match the evidence. There is no blood evidence that that you killed them here. So that for us was that text, it was very important to keep it as the base of the story. In terms of the eagle, I mean, the eagle has a lot of metaphors. I mean, it has a lot of metaphors of power. I mean, in the Mexican culture, also in the American culture, the eagle is a sense of power and domination. So, and that's how I feel that it's very evil, very witty and mean and nasty. And I think those are the kind of the ideas that we were using to develop this character.
I also think that the eagle is, it's a really heavy topic, obviously, and always I feel like we need to figure out how something is actually watchable as a performance, and to bring, and I also love the eagle character because it's very sarcastic, but I feel like it's a very, we needed a different texture in the piece, so definitely we wanted to keep the eagle. And in terms of telling the story literally, I really like that question, because even now I really struggle about how graphic the story is. I think when I was working on it, I was kind of making it to kind of process my own feelings about this event that happened, but I didn't know anyone who was directly involved in it. And now that we're starting to get to know more folks who actually are directly involved, and we're starting to present it in places outside of the United States, in Mexico, it just feels like we really have to rethink who the audience is and what it means to talk about details that are very difficult, very painful to hear. Although, we were just talking with Juan Manuel Aldape, who was writing his PhD dissertation recently and included some information about this piece. And he said, actually, I think it's very important to be very specific and not shy away from those details, because it's this way of witnessing that you can't witness something if it's just sort of vague and poetic. And I wanted the opening piece was talked about lungs and sort of feeling like you're inside a lung looking for people that you can't find. And I got inspired to write that section because there's this bureaucracy that happens that I think we all face sometimes in different situations where there are so many roadblocks. Like if you don't fill out this form in the right way, then you can't pass it on to the next person who will like then issue somebody to go help you look for where your loved one might be. When you're just wanting to find out where they are, there's so many roadblocks and so much bureaucracy. So I wanted to kind of evoke that sense of urgency, but you can't get anywhere fast.
Thank you. These are such wonderful questions. I think maybe we'll do a few more. I think the note about the visceralness, the violence, and some of the imagery is particularly interesting, and made me think of a while back some photos that were published of one of the many American wars, and showing blood and showing battlefields, and how we don't do that so much in our culture, but in other cultures they do, and it's an important way of honoring the reality of what is happening. And the question came in from Marlena here in the chat that asks if you could talk about how the details of violence done to others' bodies affected the way that you inhabited your own bodies during the performance. It's a good question.
Yeah. Debby?
That is a very...
It's a very interesting question. I mean, like, it has been moments in other pieces, especially in this section, that I feel that my body, I remember one section that we were finding using this idea of being grabbed and being detained through your clothes and holding and kind of suffocating you. I remember like we were experimenting in one big sweater that Debby came into me inside, and we were struggling, and it was extremely hard and suffocating. I think those were kind of the moments that we kind of attempt to just have a smidge of these things about the body. Also, I remember like it was another text that we're talking about the bones, like being broken and being on the ground, buried, and how this sense of dislocation of our body will look like. We have done a lot of experiments. I mean, like there is, from now that it's almost 3 years or more than that, it has been evolving. I mean, like every time, like now, when you invite us to come to do the festival, for some reason I thought that it would be like a kind of closed circle of BUSCARTE, but it seems to me like it's an open door right now, because actually going to Mexico and presenting the work in Mexico with the people that they know these stories, it has been very moving, but at the same time very healing. It is a process of healing to say like, oh, it's really hard for me to hear it, but at the same time I feel that I need to talk about it. I need to, you know, they were like thanking us to be able to have a space for grief, a place for grieving. Mm-hmm. And I thought that that was something very important. And then just connecting with this unbelievable group of women that they are looking for their beloved ones, but they don't have any support whatsoever. They have none, no the government, nothing, and they create this organization of Campaña de Búsqueda, the campaign of finding remains, and they go and they are becoming the experts of looking for remains in very hostile environments. So we feel really great, and they are really like, we are becoming so connected. I mean, like we feel we go to Mexico, we look for them, and it's a very rewarding to be with them.
I just wanted to see if I could respond to Marlena's question also in terms of the body. I feel it's so funny to do this Zoom call as the performance, and it wasn't our original plan, obviously. There are sections that we decided not to put in, and I feel like those sections deal directly with the violence to the body. And not that we're inflicting violence on ourselves, but it's kind of a response to that. And I feel like there's ways that we get really close to it and try to depict it visually, and then get really far away because of the horror of it. Yeah.
And I think we only have a couple minutes left, so I want to thank everyone for being here again, and for all of these great questions. I feel like we're just kind of scratching the surface, but I know there's also dinners to get to and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to once again post here in the chat a couple of websites. One is to donate to the festival and this work, and another is for the rest of the GUSH events. And I thought if you wanted to briefly, before we leave, share a little bit about the event that's coming up on Friday, as it intersects with some of the things that you're talking about.
For sure. And I also wanted to say, can we get the questions after the call? We can write answers, write to the people that asked them. Is that possible? Because
great idea.
A lot of great questions coming up. But for sure, on Friday at 7 p.m., Omar Garcia will be speaking in conversation with Arnoldo Garcia. Omar is one of the survivors of the student massacre, and he's currently changed careers. He was studying to be a teacher. Now he's decided to become a lawyer, and he's studying law in Mexico City now. He's been really active in traveling the world and fighting for justice for the students. And Jose, do you want to talk about Arnoldo Garcia?
Arnoldo Garcia is one of our activists, local activists here. He runs and coordinates the Zapatista kind of movement in Oakland. So he brings called Arte Zapatista. So they create events of visual events, talks, and performances that brings light to the Zapatistas movement. And it's very interesting because bringing Arnoldo with Omar, I mean, there is so much connection, intersectionality with them, because I think they really think in this sense of critical and political discourse about what is really happening with all these movements. So it's going to be, I mean, we were doing tech with them, and it was really inspiring just to listen to them, all the ways in how they connect systems of power and the movement and poverty and globalization that is affecting lives. So I think it's going to be very incredible conversation.
Yeah, and definitely related to some issues that we're facing in the United States also.
And for those of you who are attending today who are English speakers, that conversation will be in Spanish here on Zoom, but we will be using their interpretation tool, so you can come in and hear it interpreted into English as well.
I just wanted to give a shout out of thanks to the interpreters, Juan and Norma, and also to Joe Goodanex and Michelle and all the folks behind the scenes. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Thank you, and thank you for so beautifully transforming this work into our living rooms and bedrooms, and keeping.
Oh, and can I say one other thing? Please check out the amazing artists, our collaborators. Noel Rodriguez in Mexico City designed all of the prints, and we hope that someday we'll be able to fully realize the show in a theater using his work, and Adria Adi, who wrote a lot of the music you heard tonight. Adria Adi, sorry.
Yes, thank you to everyone, for being a part of this. And we'll see everyone at, we'll just keep gushing all through the week.
Thank you so much.